Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. It's February 19th, 2021. Everybody has survived the cold week we've had here in Dallas, and starting today, we will be above freezing for the first time this afternoon. Our agenda, as we do every day, we'll start out with success stories. So far, I think I know of 5 landings, maybe more. We'll then go have everybody put their introductions into the chat box for the 30-second introductions so we can get everybody's information to pass out to everybody else. We'll then go to our committee reports, workshop, job fairs, pick career interview, success workshop, career tip of the week, and then we will hear from our speaker for our main event today. For those people, if you do not have your full name in the chat box, like there's a David B, there's a Deborah, there's a Joe, J-O, we ask that you open up your participant box. And then I think if you hover over the camera microphone, it should pop up and say rename. And if you will go, please rename yourself. And underneath that box, there's a little checkbox to say, remember my name for future meetings. That way you won't have to do that in the future. That'll make things a lot easier for me because I capture that information and it just looks more professional when you're on Zoom calls with everybody. If you're on Zoom, if you have questions throughout the presentation, we ask that you just enter them into the chat box. For those people on Facebook, we ask that you please enter your questions in the comment field. I am monitoring that feed and I'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career FW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name, comments, and picture to appear. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2007, I started facilitating and leading this North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since late 1990s. I took it over. There's been several different leaders over the years, and I took it over in 2007 when the guy who was running it landed a job and wanted to know who wanted to take over. And I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been leading it ever since. In 2008, I started Career DFW as a way to help job seekers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched CareerUSA.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It's available on Amazon for 15 bucks. Or if you want to drive by when the snow melts and you want to drive by the house, you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if you want to toss 10 bucks out the window, I will attempt to throw a book in your window as long as you drive really slowly. Since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news. I think we have at least 5 landings today. Let me tell you about a couple of them before we get to the people who are on the call with us today. Michael Zorbith landed. He landed as a contracting position with USAA as a product owner. The work is for a long-term data rationalization program that will run for 2+ years. So, you know, it's a contracting job, but it's a long-term job. To note, I learned so much from us, the guest and all the other participants. I cannot thank you enough for all your efforts, coordination, and time to help putting into others, to helping others like me. Again, my gratitude and appreciation to you. Michael Curtis has landed. He landed a position with IREP, International Real Estate Partners. It's a facility management company. It's just breaking the US with Nokia as its first client. He's the regional manager for the Americas. It's primarily I'm not sure what a WFH position is with travel. So
work from home.
Oh, work from home. There we go. Work from home. Thank you. Thank you. You know, everybody uses all these abbreviations and, you know, sometimes they just don't click. And then Jim Pizzazzi has landed. He's accepted a position with Venture Solutions in Fort Worth as a senior software developer. He started this past Monday, the second time that he'd applied for the company. A former colleague referred him in, handed his resume to the hiring manager, 4 rounds of interviews, 9 different people with several background checks. His advice, networking with plenty of patience were the biggest successes, key to success. The North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group and Career FW were extremely helpful in preparing me for the interviews. The workshops and speakers provide invaluable insight and inspiration. Thanks for all you do. Please keep up the good work. Patty. Patty has
Hello. Greetings from Phoenix, everybody. So I thought I'd tell you that I've officially landed. I will be an enterprise sales director at a company called Dynata. I will be working out of my home office here in Phoenix, which is great news. So I will be traveling to clients, I'm sure, in the future. And I'm sure you want to know a little bit about how I landed it. So I connected and networked with somebody who had landed there. And when he landed, I said, how did you get your role? Did you network or some other way? And so he told me how he landed. And then he's like, check out the job page and let me know if there's anything you see you want to apply to. So I did. And I said, hey, how do I put you as an internal referral? I actually had to put his name in the internal application, put it in, and I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. So I was a little like worried. And then I wrote him back, and he handed my resume to sent my resume to the hiring manager. The hiring manager told the HR person to give me a call. This was 3 weeks ago, Thursday. So I spoke with that person. Then I had my first interview the following Monday with somebody on the team. And then I had my second interview with the hiring manager on that Thursday. And then on that Friday, I had an interview with the hiring manager's manager. And they told the HR person to make me an offer. So they made me an offer the following Monday. I negotiated, and then I accepted last Wednesday. And then they had to do their background checks and everything else and everything. I'm finally now officially in the system. And so I start on Monday.
Well, congratulations. We'll miss getting the temperature update every week from Phoenix. I'm glad. How did you find us here in Dallas?
Oh, well, I found you guys kind of like a roundabout way. So I connected with somebody in Kansas City who said, hey, you need to connect with, the Who You Know show and Dallas group. So then I connected with the Who You Know show. And then, of course, I got connected to the Dallas group from there because there really aren't too many job search resources here in Phoenix.
Okay, well, great.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
thank you.
Congratulations, Patty, and thank you for our introduction to Crystal Knows.
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions about Crystal Knows, which is a personality AI tool, I would say it helped me tremendously in my interview. So I knew how to bond and rapport, what I had to do to get hired by the people that were interviewing me. Oh, one other thing I wanted to add, I was going through 3 interview processes at the same time. So Dynata was one. I had 2 other companies. I was in active interviewing mode. And one came back like the day before I was going to tell them I'm not going to go on further. They said, well, we're going to proceed with other candidates. So I didn't even tell them that I got hired. And then last Friday, I had to tell the other company that I was not going to go on any further and I was in final rounds. So when it rains, it pours. I mean, it really was like I was interviewing with 3 companies at the same time, very aggressively.
Wow, congratulations. Very, very good. All right, well, I
Yep.
know we have one more success story. Please unmute your mic and let us know.
Yes,
Tony.
Good morning. Hey, yeah, I'm Tony Tabor. I'm a PMP certified program manager. And yes, I landed in an aerospace supply chain company called Greer Industries. I'll be program manager for new product development. And I start on Monday. If you want to ask how I got this job, it's just purely by networking. And I had an old boss who just out of the blue reached out to me a week and a half ago, told me about this opportunity, said he threw my name in the hat. The next day I was talking to the owner. The next day after that, I had a panel interview. And then the next day after that, I had an offer. And so I start on Monday. I would have started this week, but the weather didn't hold out for me. But I'm ready to go on Monday.
Well, great. Congratulations. So
the
whole process was less than 2 weeks.
Yeah. Just, it's amazing how things like that just happen. In fact, I was looking at my job search spreadsheet. I just about hit 1,000 activities in the last 10 months and then suddenly, boom, here you go, here's a job. So it's just amazing. Those things can happen, but I must insist, you know, network, keep in touch, especially with your old bosses, old coworkers. You just never know, because they know you and they know what you can do. And when that opportunity happens, they'll think of you and they'll reach out. And so I lucked out.
Well, Tony, congratulations. You make number 27 from the group as far as I know. And I mean, it's just amazing this year how fast people are starting to land in the last couple of months. I mean, we have 27 in 6 weeks. Last year, we had 110 total from the whole group. So we're 25% of our way for the year. So let's keep this up. We'll have everybody employed on this who's on the call today within the next couple of months here, I hope. Yep. Congratulations and thank you very much. Anybody else? Do we have anybody else with who has landed? Going once, going twice. All right. Look at all these donuts we're saying. Just think if we had 27 people, we had 27 dozen donuts to eat over the last 6 weeks, we would just be rolling down the steps. We wouldn't be able to walk anymore. All right. Thank you very much. All right. It's time for everybody, if you would, to please open up your chat box, and please in the chat box or in the comment field on Facebook, please enter your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, 2 or 3 target companies that you'd like to have help with, and then hit the return key. By doing that, that way everything will get be put together in one set of details. For those people on Facebook, I will go through and delete your personal information right after this meeting, so it will not be hanging out there forever and ever. So I appreciate everybody. If you would go through and do that, that'd be great. And let me see if I can get our 30 seconds of music to play here. Y'all can continue on. We're going to just move ahead here. So let's see here. So it's up to job fairs, career fairs, training and workshops happening this week. Good morning, Eldon.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Again, my name is Eldon Zarinsky, and I am responsible for providing you information for career and job fairs and special workshops or events. Hopefully everybody got through this cold week unscathed. We almost did. I think I lost a refrigerator, but we're still going through all that. Hopefully everybody did okay, and looking forward to some warmer weather next week. I go through these items fairly quickly. The information I'm about to present to you comes from the calendar tab of careerdfw.org website, and there's an example of it right there showing many things. Each color represents a different topic. I focus again on career and job fairs and special workshops or events. I go through these things fairly quickly, so if you hear something that piques your interest, I urge you to go to the calendar tab and click on that, because that's where you'll usually find more information and or a link to participate in that event. This week's career and job fairs. United Electronic Recycling, not really a job fair, but some people may be recycling their resumes, will be Saturday, February 20th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And there's also paper shredding, and there's also an electronics drop-off for monitors, printers, and other items of electronics that you might have. And that's at the Christ United Methodist Church, 3101 Coit Road in Plano. This week's special workshops or events. The third Friday Internet of Things Special Interest Group Breakfast is actually going on right now, February 19th. They do this the third Friday of every month. That's an interesting group for those of you who are interested in finding out more about the Internet of Things and what's going on in the local area with regard to that very interesting topic. Online, Who You Know Career Transition Summit, Tuesday, February 23rd from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. This is hosted by Foster Williams. There's a Zoom link on the calendar to participate in that. And if you don't know Foster, I urge you to get to know Foster Williams. Online again, LinkedIn Tuesdays at 1 p.m. online. This is a rotating seminar featuring Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, Ruth Lipsky, and Kurt Vondermutter. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link for that. It's Tuesday, February 23rd from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Online again, Interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. This is hosted by our own Mark McDonald and Walt Glass. There's a Zoom link on the calendar for that. That's Wednesday, February 24th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. This is the topic this week is asking questions in the interview. This is session 8 out of 13 sessions that they rotate through. They're planning on having a guest speaker circuit starting, I believe, in April. Employer Spotlight Workshop, Thursday, February 25th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. There's a Facebook link for that. That's hosted, the speaker this time is Teresa Bell, who's a talent acquisition manager for the Southern Division at the Albertson stores. Online again, Resumes Thursdays online session with Carol Brickell, certified professional career coach. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link for that. It's Thursday, February 25th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And finally, a presentation by Terry Sullivan. And if you haven't heard Terry talk about LinkedIn and how to use it for branding, this workshop's entitled Master the Power of LinkedIn Branding and Social Selling. It's a Career Solutions Workshop. It's a Zoom presentation open to the public, and there's a link in there to find out more information about that. And that's Thursday, February 25th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And again, if you have never heard Terry Sullivan talk about how he uses LinkedIn from a marketing standpoint, I urge you to do that. And that's it for this week.
Eldon, thank you very, very much. All right. For those people, if you're trying to find other webinars, other seminars, other workshops to do, that's the light purple that you saw on the big calendar. But I've got a little banner here on the very front page that you can connect, that you can find out to, and just click on Webinar Teleseminars, and up will come a calendar. It looks something like this. That's light purple, that you can find all the events with Zoom links in that. If you know somebody who just lost their job, I know another 860,000 people applied for unemployment for the first time this past week. If you know somebody who just lost their job, they need help, they're not sure what they do, tell them to go to Career DFW, Career USA. They can click right where it says, I just lost my job, what do I do now? Up will come an article with some great links with handouts and some checklists and some things that people can work on to help them in their job search, help them get themselves going so they're just not blocked and not thinking about what it is they're doing. It's time to hear from the practice interview team. Is Mark with us? I haven't seen him.
Yeah, here I am.
Oh, there you are.
Hey.
Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. And good morning to everyone else. So everybody has to give a report about their managing the weather, and I did fairly well. I had, intermittent power, but I have gas service to my house, so I had hot water and I could cook. So nothing's busted yet. So I consider myself very fortunate, but it was cold. It was definitely cold. So congratulations to all the people that landed. And I got to say, it's not uncommon for people to be in a position to have multiple offers, to actually receive multiple offers, or as Patty talked about, have multiple things going on simultaneously, all, getting to be a very serious stage, and one of them pops, and there you go. So that is not uncommon. And we hear, frequently every month, maybe a couple of times a month, where people found a job on Monday and interviewed. By Friday they had an offer and they were starting the next week. So that happens as well. Your time will come. You just got to be prepared, and that's what the pit crew is all about, helping you to be prepared when those interviews arrive. And so we do that by a very personalized and customized interview experience based on a job description and your resume. So you find the job description that looks good to you. It doesn't even have to be one that you're already engaged in. It can just be your dream job description. You can go to Dice or Monster or LinkedIn. You can send that in to the pit crew along with your resume. And I have a group of volunteers who are mostly unemployed, just like you. Now, some of them are retired like me, and so they get back to the jobless community in their retirement years. But most of them are in job search just like you. And so they're walking in your shoes in real time. And so they are the ones who give the personalized, customized interview. It takes about 45 minutes. We do it on Zoom. There's a recording. There's no charge for the interview. It's all free. And then at the end of the interview, there's a feedback session, and we discuss interviewing and your interview in particular, and things that you did well and should keep doing, and the things that you may want to consider changing. And if you're in the pursuit of a specific job or opportunity, we'll give you advice about that job as well. That particular job, and if you advance, what you could expect. This year, we're focusing more on building rapport and making a connection with the interviewer. And so at our Wednesday afternoon Interview Wednesday webinar this week, we are talking about asking questions. And so few people in their practice interviews ask questions during the interview. They wait to the end, like I guess most people do. When the interviewer gives them permission to ask questions, they start asking questions, but it's much more effective and helps build rapport and will help your candidacy if you ask interviews during the interview to create a dialogue with the interviewer. And so we'll talk about how to do that this coming Wednesday. And then finally, my LinkedIn profile, I got out of order again, didn't I, Jeff?
That's okay.
My LinkedIn profile, please link in with me. I'm retired, but I had a long career in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in high-tech electronics. In the telecommunications equipment industry. But I've been doing the PID crew for 8 or 9 years now. And so I have a big network of all different kinds of people in it. So I'm sure there's someone there who might be able to help you network into your next job. So just send an email to me. It says we met on the North Dallas Career Focus Group meeting on Friday morning, and I'll add you to my network, and we'll both be better for it. And I won't talk about coaching today, but come listen to the Wednesday webinar, and I'll talk about the coaching that I do. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Mark, thank you very much. Walt, good morning.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome on this cold day, but we're headed for some warmer weather and some good news. Okay, I am did without power for 3 days. Now I've got power, but not water because of leaks in the apartment complex that I have, and they shut it all off. So I know that Tom Atkins does anti-money laundering. And so Tom, do you do regular laundering? Because I have some stacked up that I might want to bring over if you've got some water power at your place. Anyway, what's the interview success workshop and what's it all about? It's a little different approach than the mock interview, which I heartily recommend you do. But it's a fundamentals of differentiation and how we sell ourselves. Now, those 3 things about ourselves that we want to sell is who we are, what we do, and how we can help them. Remember, they don't hire us to project manage. They don't hire us to just say, go through your selling activities. They don't hire us to do data analysis and do all those activities. They hire us for the results of those activities and the accomplishments and how we can show them where we've done that in the past and how we can do it and help them. So how do we do that in an interview? So it's very fundamental, very basic in the beginning so that you can learn that differentiation. And, I've listened to, Mark and I've listened to tons of interviews. And Mark, would you say we hear the same answer very frequently with these typical questions? It's just the same answer. So if you're the interviewer and you're listening to people give these same answers over and over again, it gets very hard to remember who was interviewed. And we want to be the person they remember. How do we do that? Being authentic and genuine. So do it via Zoom. Only do 2 people at a time. You have to be registered to attend. Look me up on LinkedIn. Send me an email, my waltglass@yahoo.com, and I'll give you some dates that you can get you scheduled. All you really need is a job description in the first time you come. You may want to come multiple times, but that job description is going to help me determine relevancy to your responses to that particular job. That's extremely important. Tell them that we have our water safety instructor's license and that I was a lifeguard back in 1983 is not going to help us get a job at one of Mark's places in engineering. So, but glad to have you sign up. Be glad to have you participate. It's free. just come on down and join us. So I know that today's another poem day. So what can we say about interviewing today? Well, do you fear the practice interview? Schedule the workshop and the pit crew. Our seats are not for squirming. They are best chairs for learning and how to win with a Texas. Woo-hoo!
Thank you very, very much. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, it's time for the career tip of the week. Tony, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Jeff, and hi, everyone. This week's career tip is, should I send my resume as a PDF or as a Word document? If you haven't been out testing the waters of the job market for a long time, dusting off your resume may feel like unearthing a relic from centuries past. But once you have it ready, you might be wondering about the best format for dispersing it among all the employers who may want to hire you. While using Microsoft Word may have been the best practice of years past, it's a bit more common to send a resume as a PDF nowadays. There's a number of advantages to using a PDF, but there's still a host of employers who ask for Word documents for their own reasons. Once you've got your resume up to an interview-ready standard, here's how to navigate the potential job hunting dilemma of resume format. One PDF advantage is formatting. A PDF is basically a one-size-fits-all file that looks the same no matter the device you've used to download it. That isn't really true for Word documents, as some of the trickery you've employed to give your resume a flash of personality can get jumbled from one computer to the next. The formatting will also change if the recipient has a different version of Word than you do. As Resume Coach explains, the quirks of passing a Word document across devices can present multiple headaches. Often the margins are different sizes. A one-page resume can spill over to the next page. Fonts can appear differently, or even worse, your resume may just appear as undecipherable code. If you've spent valuable time working on your resume, focusing on the resume format and layout, it would be tragic for an employer to open a messy resume instead of your well-produced resume. It gives entirely the wrong impression. PDFs can also be locked and code protected, which is a bonus if you're weary of somebody sabotaging your candidacy. Now, when might you use a Word document? If you're emailing or direct messaging a recruiter or potential manager resume, I recommend opting for a PDF, owing to all formatting advantages and the general ease of opening the document. But when it comes to applying on lots of company websites, you might want to opt for the Word route. Many companies use applicant tracking software, or ATS, that more readily scan Word documents. For example, you may have submitted a PDF on an online job listing only to find that your experience looks scattered and inscrutable once the system digests it and spits it back out. As ZipJob explains, when applying to a job online, the best format is to send your resume is usually a Word document. This format is most easily read by the majority of ATS systems. While it is more and more common for companies to invest in more sophisticated ATS software that will parse your resume, you can be confident that virtually all ATS scans can read a doc file. Most ATS systems are compatible with PDF nowadays, but it never hurts to be doubly sure. Word docs are editable for rare occasions. This happens more often with recruiters who are likely to offer edits to resumes that can better augment your chances of getting a job. Since a PDF isn't exactly a living document that anyone can change, you might want to send your resume to a recruiter in Word form just so they can tinker with it and strengthen what's necessary. It's good to have both versions on hand. I generally get by with PDFs, but one general best practice remains true across the board for everyone. Submit the format that the employer is asking for. Every company has its own policies and workflows, so you might be asked to submit a Word document one day and a PDF the next. In my experience, most employers ask for PDFs, but there's no telling if you'll be asked for a different format at some point. It's definitely best to have both formats. That's the career tip of the week. Good luck, everyone.
Tony, thank you very much. You'll be able to, if you'd like to go back and read that, it is on the Career DFW and Career USA websites. It'll be there till Saturday at 1 o'clock, and then it'll switch over to next week's tip. I did put in the chat box the sample resume that we recommend on Thursdays at our Effective Resume Thursday class. So if you're looking for a template to use, we've got, like I said, I just loaded that, and you should be able to go ahead and download that. All right, coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we're going to hear from Clay Tarpley. He's going to talk about transitions, making sense of life's changes. Next Friday, our speaker is going to talk about keep your eyes on the prize, continuing learn and adapt for career success. And then the first Friday in March, hard to believe it'll be March already, we'll be doing open forum as we always do the very first Friday of every month. Oops, I guess I should have clicked those. Sorry about that. Just a little quickie reminder, Career DFW and the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group are two separate organizations. This is not the Friday group of Career DFW. Career DFW doesn't have any networking groups. Career DFW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides career help in the Dallas-Fort Worth area now around the United States. The common thread is that I happen to lead both. You're welcome to overthrow me here at any time if you want to take over the North Dallas group, but you're not going to get Career DFW out of my hands. All right, it's time to hear from our speaker today. Clay has spent his corporate career with Procter & Gamble, where he was involved in significant organization changes and initiatives. He also gained knowledge of career management process in the course of evaluating outplacement providers during site shutdowns. Following P&G, he was involved in the career management field as an outplacement provider. He was a longtime volunteer for Career Connections and managed Career Connections from 2010 to 2012. He's currently a member of the adjunct facility at the School of Business at the Richland campus of Dallas College, teaching management and cooperative education classes. So Clay, thank you for being with us, and it's all yours. Hello, Clay, you need to unmute your mic. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I wasn't sure if I was controlling it or if you were. And again, first of all, my name's Clay Tarpley, and I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I also hope that your job search goes so quickly that what I'm going to share today is irrelevant. I'd like to again thank Jeff for inviting me, and more importantly, to acknowledge him for his contribution to the fields of career management and career transition for either coming up on or having gone past the last 2 decades. Jeff, you can date yourself if you want to. Today, we're going to talk about the process people go through dealing with significant change events in their lives, such as job loss. However, the process that I'm going to share really applies to all significant change efforts. My experience with major change is practical versus theoretical and very experiential. As Jeff said, I spent my corporate career with Procter & Gamble. Dating myself, I began in 1977 and spent 22 years with them. In the course of manufacturing operations, I was heavily involved in significant organization change efforts from the day I walked in to the day I walked out. And some were business building, such as introducing high performance work systems, diversity efforts, total quality, things of that nature. Others were not quite that positive because I was involved in 3 shutdowns involving close to 1,000 people and their families. In addition to learning how to execute organization transitions, I learned a tremendous amount about the process that people on an individual basis go through dealing with change. And what I'll be sharing today is based on those learnings. In the early 80s, as Proctor was beginning to shut longtime sites down, we engaged the services of Dr. William Bridges to help guide us through that. And so today, what I'm sharing is largely based on the work of Dr. William Bridges, together with what we learned from it in implementing it in Proctor. Typically, when I do these sessions live, and bear with me, this is the first time I've done this on Zoom, but when I do it live, I typically begin by asking folks to share, to the extent they're willing, how they felt emotionally going through job search, particularly if it's been an extended job search. And to boil it down, the common denominator typically comes down to something of the nature of, hey, it's been an emotional roller coaster and it's not been a fun roller coaster. So Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. I click share screen and then click my PowerPoint.
Yes. And then hit the share button in the lower right-hand corner of the box.
Got it.
Now you can, there you
Okay.
go.
All right. Thanks for the tech support. As I said, this presentation is based on the work of Dr. William Bridges. His book, which I would strongly encourage you to find if it's still in print, is entitled Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. But you'll note that it was written by an academic. So let's get rolling. First slide. This slide indicates that when people encounter a significant change event, there's more to it than just the change. There are actually two processes that kick in at that time. The first is the change process, which most of us are very familiar with. With change, something starts or stops or begins happening in a different way. Think about a light switch. You flip it one direction, the light goes on. Flip it the other direction, the light goes off. Or in our case, because I've been in your shoes before, in our case, one day we had a job, the next day we didn't. That's change. And the process to implement change can be planned and executed and managed in a rational manner, very similar to project management, which is basically what you're doing in the course of your job search with your weekly, monthly, or daily planned activities. The other part of it is not so obvious to the majority of people, and that's the transition process. And transition is simply a three-stage psychological process people experience when dealing with significant change events. And importantly, this process can apply both when the change is positive or viewed negatively, such as job loss. Transition is more a journey than project and often extends over a long period of time. And importantly, because it involves the H factor, that is humans and our emotions, transition cannot be managed through a rational process or in a specific or finite length of time. And it's in that, and herein lies the problem that many people have dealing with major change events. They don't recognize that two separate and distinct processes are going on at the same time. One is highly rational, the other not so much so. The next two slides look at this in a slightly different way. Okay, so here's how your mind sees a change event. On day A, you have a job. On day B, you don't. Simple as that. But let's look at how your mind processes dealing with that change. And basically, it involves the disintegration of a previous life and the recreation of another life. For some of you as old as I am, and Jeff to a lesser extent, you may remember the ad from the 80s of here's your mind on drugs, a very similar process. Bridge has put together a three-phase model to help show how people deal with change, and here it is. And before diving into the detail of it and how to interpret it and use it, let me explain to you that it's important to excuse me. First and foremost, the model is only a general framework of how humans deal with change. It can't be a precise roadmap because every human being deals with change in their own way. In Proctor, we used this extensively, and we had an objective in every significant change effort we made. And to the extent feasible, we wished every person involved and impacted to have what we referred to as a complete ending and then a successful new beginning. And it's my wish that you in your job search have do the same. Now, in terms of utilizing and interpreting this, if you go to the bottom left of the screen, the intersection of the time and percent of time axes, that's really when you become aware of the change event. The percent of time is simply a way to think about that is the percent of your brain space that is occupied dealing with the three phases at a particular time. The horizontal axis represents the passage of time from the receipt of knowledge of the change until the end. It's important to know that the process flows from left to right with time, and the lines separating the phases are neither rigid nor fixed. They're permeable and flexible because everybody goes through this process differently. And as you'll see, the majority of people experience some aspects of each of the three phases virtually from the beginning. What changes as time passes is the amount of brain space devoted to each phase. Obviously, on the left-hand side, if if one day you have a job and at the end of the day you get gobsmacked upside of the head, telling you, "Thanks, it's been nice, don't bother coming back tomorrow," yeah, you're probably going to be pretty preoccupied with the ending, and that's natural. It's also important to note that the process is neither linear nor direct. A person may be progressing from left to right through the phases just fine, and then backtrack to the left, often in response to new information or other stimuli. For instance, and particularly in job search, if you've been rocking and rolling and things have been going well, thinking you were getting close to something, and you get a thanks but no thanks letter for a job that you thought you were going to get an offer and you really wanted, and you were already seeing yourself in that job, that can set you back. Or you go in and you weren't prepared for an interview and you get blown out of the water. Those are the events in job search that can set you back. And importantly, even when people are clearly in the new beginnings phase, note that some amount of brain space may still be devoted to the other two phases. And what that implies is the past is past, but not necessarily forgotten. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. So let's dive into the phases. The first phase that we're going to deal with is the ending phase. Realistically, when you experience the loss of a job, that aspect of your life has changed, and what is next is not clear. I mean, another way to say that is simply the new reality is that the past is past, excuse me, the past is history, the future is a mystery. As this slide indicates, other losses are typically involved beyond the loss of the job. Although obviously when you first learn about the loss of job, that's the gorilla in the room. But this, what this illustrates is there are several other, and particularly in job search, elements of loss that may be involved. Turf, physical space, maybe you had an office, you had responsibility and power. Attachment, you had relationships, you had colleagues, mentors, groups, subordinates. Structure, in a lot of cases, you knew what every day was going to look like for the most part because you knew when you needed to be there. You probably had some routine planned activities, things of that nature. Future, you probably had a career plan, or you knew how your current job was going to fit into your professional development and where you desired to go. Meaning, I think all of us have a sense of purpose when we go to work. And when you lose your job, well, that sense of purpose is ended. Control, both over your career and your personal life, may have changed significantly. And identity. And identity is a particularly important one in this country, although I think it's becoming more so in other parts of the world, because in this country, to a large extent, we have our personal identity so wrapped up in our professional and work identity that when it's hard to separate the two and manage them separately. Now, a very important issue at this point is that the loss of the job can be so significant, at least at the outset, that it obscures the other losses. It's worth thinking of the job loss perhaps as the tip of the iceberg that you can see and you know is there, but don't forget about the other part that's hidden, because like the Titanic found, it can reach out and bite you. And some additional thoughts. It's the losses people experience often impact their view of where they fit in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that you can go from being close to fulfillment back to basic survival. And that contributes to, that's a part of the contribution to why it's so strange to us. The losses one experiences are unique to the individual, and it's important that each individual identify their unique losses. Let's stay with, let's go through this list a little bit. Let's say Jeff and I have been office mates for 10 years at the same company, and we both received at the same time the announcement that, thanks guys, you've been great, but your services are no longer needed. Okay, so we're going to get hit with the job loss itself. However, as we look at the other losses, turf, attachment, the importance of turf to me might be significantly different than it is for Jeff, as well as attachment, structure, and all of those. So even though we may all experience the same losses, the degree of their importance and how we manage them is strictly individual. Now, failure to identify and acknowledge losses can often be the source of discomfort, a sense of emptiness and disorientation. We've all had the feeling at some point of, you know, something's different, just doesn't feel right, but you can't put your finger on it. Not identifying and dealing with some of these sub-losses can often contribute to that. And a lot of times it's not even the big things, it's smaller things. When we shut the Dallas Procter & Gamble site down, I took a little hike up to the Northeast to our site outside of Boston. That was an interesting change after having been born, raised, and living 38 years in Texas. But things were different there, but I was adjusting. But I came to realize that one of the things that I really missed was a friend in office who officed next to me. And he and I, you know, in manufacturing, you get there relatively early. I got there earlier than him. And I'd see he wasn't there as I walked by his dark office. I'd turn on my light, go in. And his ritual was every morning when he got there, he'd take his fist, slam the wall, let me know he was there. And that was our signal to go get a cup of coffee. Well, you know, you've lived with that for about 3 years. And when it's not there, you notice it. And that's the sort of stuff I'm talking about here. Another issue that folks experience in the end phase is the reality is you're going through the process of letting go of your previous reality. And what is more difficult, the previous identity of that reality. And as humans, many of us cling to our old identity. Long Beach, California was probably the first Procter plant that we shut down while I was part of Procter. And so typically Procter shutdown started with an announcement, and then there was a 6 to 9 month phasing out of operations, at which point there was a date. The plant was closed. You could not get in. The gates were barred and locked. And what we learned at that time is several employees who were no longer employees, day after day for up to weeks on end, would show up every day at start time like they were going to work. And most of you probably heard stories of Japanese businessmen who lose their jobs, and still, first of all, they don't tell their families, but they get up every day, put on their suit and tie, grab their briefcase, you know, go hang out all day and come back. So there's a tendency, we have a tendency to want to hang on to our old identity. The next slide indicates some of the feelings and behaviors experienced in the ending phase. And you may recognize the similarity to those associated with the death and dying cycle, et cetera. Most folks have dealt with this, so we're not going to go into any great detail. So let's talk about having a complete ending. And there are two keys in doing so. First of all, as we've talked, identify and acknowledge your personal losses. If you don't, they're likely to get, particularly if you have an extended job search, those undealt with losses may well get in your way. You also need to put your previous life in the proper context. Identify and deal with any baggage that can get in your way. And let's talk baggage. One example I use is that probably about 10 years ago, my wife and I moved into a different community. And one lady who became our friend, her name was Beverly. She was roughly our age, which is getting old. But she was single, and she was not bashful about letting us know that if we knew any eligible single men, she was interested. And however, as my wife got to know her, it seems that every conversation that involved men and relationships, Beverly always went to a core point, and it dealt with a relationship that had ended poorly, that she still longed for, and that was 25 years ago. Okay, that's some baggage. And do you think for a minute I'm going to introduce any of my friends to somebody who's hanging on to a relationship 25 years ago? No. And, you know, and when you lose your job, particularly if it's an unplanned and involuntary loss of your job, you know, that triggers quite a few feelings. And in a lot of people, those feelings involve anger, perhaps blaming others for you not having a job, et cetera. And as all of us who have, Jeff would know, as all of us who have dealt with people in job transition know, if you carry that anger and that sense of blame into a job interview, at some point it's going to surface, and that's going to be the end of the job interview. So it's important for you to put and deal with any baggage and put your previous employment in this proper context. And let's be clear, putting it in the proper context does not at all imply you should forget it. It's just that you finished that chapter of your life and it's time to move to the next. And moving to the next, let's go to phase 2, the neutral zone. And I refer to this slide, which captures common feelings and behaviors. And I view this as the dark side of the neutral zone. And I hope you'll trust me, there is a bright side that we'll get to in a moment. The neutral zone, and obviously lists common feelings and behaviors in the neutral zone. And the neutral zone if you've been in job search for a while, the neutral zone may be the most relevant part of this conversation to you, particularly if you have successfully or partially passed through the complete ending phase. Now, let's be clear about one thing, and this is my opinion, but Bridges' use of the term neutral is a complete misnomer, because he means it is simply being in the middle between one job and the next, or one, et cetera. Kind of like shifting gears in a manual transmission. You pass through neutral going from gear to gear. Well, the reality is life in the neutral zone is anything but neutral from an emotional standpoint. It can be a really, really strong emotional roller coaster with extreme highs and extreme lows. And oftentimes, depending on the situation, the highs and lows can occur multiple times in a day. Other terms that I've heard people use for it, places that I don't think any of us care to be, lost in the wilderness or purgatory, because it's in between. Some examples Bridges uses may help put it in perspective. He speaks of Moses leading the tribes of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. And as we know, once they escaped slavery, they wandered in the wilderness in what we now know is a very small geographic area for a number of generations. And he's not saying it's true, but he proposes maybe that was necessary. And the necessity was for all of the generations, and perhaps a few after generations associated with slavery that had either experienced it or had heard stories about it or what have you, had to live and die off in order for the new generation to have a successful new beginning as the nation of Israel. Maybe not, but it paints a good picture of the neutral zone. Another example he uses is, as most of us know, several cultures still use rites of passage to signify the transition from childhood to adulthood. Another example, crossing a busy street. Let's say Jeff and I have had lunch, and being the two smart guys we are, we want to get to the other side of Central Expressway on foot. And we're lucky enough to get to the center median and stop and look, and oh, guess what? Traffic going both directions is such that we can't go forward, we can't get backward. We're stuck in the middle. And that's life in the neutral zone. Now, even though it's uncomfortable, the neutral zone is a necessary step in transition, but let's be clear, it can be uncomfortable. But if you know it's supposed to be that way, you're not going crazy. There are some other aspects of the neutral zone that it would be worth you being aware of. It's a time of both risk and opportunity. As we know, in many languages, the symbol for risk is the same as the symbol for opportunity. The issue is simply the context and one's perspective. Consequently, be aware of making less than optimal decisions and choices. Be thoughtful before acting. Other risks and dangers include idealizing the past, wishing for a return to the good old days or your old job. Nostalgia is okay, but it must be kept in perspective. And there are two types of nostalgia. One's realistic, the other unrealistic. Reflective nostalgia refers to the realistic perception of the past in which one is aware of both the good parts, but also recognizes its imperfections. Distortive nostalgia refers to the unrealistic perception of the past as entirely good and all was well in the world. So we'll use me and Proctor as an example in this. I have many fond memories of Proctor. Had great relationships, was challenged by the work that I did, but felt that I did it well and I enjoyed it. There were clearly times that I was having so much fun that I would continue doing it even if I wasn't getting paid. Proctor was a tremendous learning organization. Probably the majority of what I know now, I learned in Proctor, and I valued that. And quite frankly, the pay and benefits were really good. Okay, so yeah, I'd take that back if I could. But as anybody who's worked in manufacturing knows, and particularly in my day, making soap, it's not a very glamorous environment. And also dealt with floods, fires, explosions, amputations. I think one time I worked 70 to 80 straight days without a break. Had a couple of death threats, things of that nature. You know, I don't look fondly back at that. So keep your nostalgia in the proper context. Another danger is getting stuck. And this refers to hanging on to the past in your current situation. This could include situations in which one fails to acknowledge that, perhaps through no fault of their own, that their previous occupation and career no longer exists due to changes in technology or economic models, or they just haven't kept current enough and they can't stay with it any longer. An example of that sticks with me. A couple of years ago, I was listening to an interview with a lady, and she had at some point in the relatively near past lost her job at an auto parts manufacturer in Wisconsin. And the gist of the interview was simply asking her, Ms. So-and-so, you've been out of work for XY length of time, and so far you've chosen not to avail yourselves of any of the opportunities provided, retraining for another profession, additional skills, education, etc. You've not done anything. Can you tell us why? And her response was straightforward. I'm an auto worker, and I will always be an auto worker. And what that said to me is, yep, you can be an auto worker till the day you die, but you're probably going to be unemployed the entire time. So, recognize that you can't hold on to the past. The third issue is jumping ship, and that's leaving for perceived greener fields, greater certainty, oftentimes without proper planning or research. A couple of examples. By the time I was with Proctor, or actually for the first time with Proctor, we began allowing technicians to transfer to other Procter & Gamble sites. And we had an extremely talented, relatively new young technician at Dallas, and he took 4 trips, 4 different sites, 4 different states. he got 4 different offers. He was that good, and he accepted one, and at the location where he accepted, before coming home, he went ahead and signed a contract on a house. Okay, that's all well and good. But when he returned, we found out that he had not yet informed his family that, number one, the Dallas site was shutting down and that he was in the transfer process and had bought a new house. That one, that one took the P&G legal department quite a bit of time, effort, and energy to unravel. But it's kind of like, okay, so you're abandoning a ship, you see something in the water to grab onto, and you find that you've jumped off and landed on a shark. Okay. And Jeff and I both, and many in the career management field, have similar examples. We've had members of our groups who take probably one of the first opportunities that comes along, and then 1, 2, 3 weeks, maybe a month or so later, they're right back. And in that period of time, what occurred is that either they had chosen the wrong job, or the company had figured out that they had made the wrong hire. So be aware of jumping ship. And the final issue is going fast forward, somewhat similar to jumping ship. And it refers to jumping into a new beginning before letting go of the past, which can lead to taking the past, meaning your baggage, with you. And that's not really healthy or conducive to acceptance and success in a new role. Many of us know of people who we've worked with who lamented the fact that they weren't where they used to be, or, hey, at XYZ, we did this better, we did this differently. You need to compartmentalize your baggage. So now that I painted that bright picture, let me give a few hints here. And here's some helpful approaches. And as you'll see, most of them deal with your emotional health. Okay, the situation is temporary. Affirm yourself, trust your intuition, things of that nature, things that we all probably know and know very well. However, it's in your best interest, while in the neutral zone, to ensure that you raise these to a very conscious level. I refer to the next slide, finally, as the neutral zone, the bright side. So losing a job can be like a train ride in which you enter a tunnel and may be in complete darkness before seeing a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. And this slide kind of represents that. And realistically, the light at the end of the tunnel really begins with a shift in mindset, where one begins seeing possibilities versus, or in addition to, or perhaps besides seeing the problems. Now, let's conclude the neutral zone by kind of recapping Tarpley's suggestions of keys to success in navigating it. Recognize, first and foremost, try to maintain a high degree of situational awareness of where you are in the overall job transition process. Because quite frankly, the life in the neutral zone is time when you will predictably feel like you're crazy. So, it's one thing to feel like you're going crazy and not know where you are versus, okay, I'm at a spot where it's uncomfortable, I feel crazy, but that's kind of where I am on the map right now. Recognize that emotional swings are normal and predictable. Doesn't mean they're not uncomfortable, but it means you aren't going crazy and it is a temporary situation. And it's important to focus, and the helpful hints focused on your emotional health. It's important, in my opinion, and I always focus on this in groups I've led, that it's important to focus both on your emotional and physical health. The it's what's between the ears that's really important, but working with your body to maintain it, your physical fitness can go great ways to mental fitness as well. So, last but not least, the new beginning phase. This may feel like last but not least, but there are some points to note. And this slide captures the typical feelings and behaviors in this phase. The new beginning phase is analogous to that train totally emerging from the tunnel into the light. And some points to keep in mind. Your transition began with the ending of a previous life. Okay, your transition is going to end with the beginning of a new life. It's the journey in between that's the hard part. A new beginning can only take root after the previous reality has been put behind in the proper context. Not forgotten, just put it in the proper context. And recognize, particularly in job search, based on my experience, the new beginning often starts with a shift in the mindset to one that sees possibilities. A shift from the glass is half empty to the glass is half full. And quite frankly, in job search, this oftentimes occurs well before one actually lands a new role or even sees, even knows of a potential new role. It's often simply a vision of one or more possibilities. And not to belabor the vision thing, but the vision of your new beginning must be supplemented by a clear plan. And as noted by Ron Kirk, former mayor of Dallas and U.S. trade representative, a vision without a plan is nothing but a fantasy. So let me conclude with the fact that the new beginning signifies that the past is past, but is not necessarily forgotten. So that concludes the presentation portion of this. I'd like to offer you a few thoughts in closing, and that is, I hope I've provided you with some additional knowledge and information of what you may be experiencing while in job search mode and a model for navigating the process, but also hope your transition goes so quickly that this is irrelevant. And finally, in keeping with my proctor training, it's my wish for you all to have a complete ending and successful new beginning as you navigate your current transition. So Jeff, how do we want to,
how do we wish? Thank you. I don't know if anybody has any questions. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to unmute your mic and ask them, or if you want to put them in the chat box, you're welcome to put them in the chat box and we'll read them for you. But any question about what Clay talked about?
Clay, this is Richard. Yeah, just one question. When I first saw New Beginnings, I was under the impression that was post an offer, but it sounds like that's really kind of pre-offer, just it's a positive attitude.
I'm sorry. I grew up in manufacturing operations before hearing protection, plus I'm getting old. Let me plug in headphones and see if I can hear you better. And knowing me, I'm probably going to plug it into the microphone first. So somebody will, Jeff, if you'll tell me to unplug and replug, I will.
Okay. Testing, testing. Hello, hello. I think you did. You plugged in the wrong one, I think.
Okay, how's that?
There we go.
Okay, much better.
Richard,
thank
you. You want to ask your question again?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. So when I first was looking at the notes from the beginning, the slide, you had new beginning as a phase. And I was thinking that that was, you know, at the time of maybe say an offer or you're getting ready now to start your new job. But it sounds like this is really coming out of all that, I'll say, frustration and putting on a more positive face and attitude, right, in your job search.
Yeah, because the the majority of the time you've got to make that mental shift before you're likely to have the mindset that comes across to people as they want you. So keep in mind, none of these boundaries or none of the phases are hard and fast. So the model is just simply trying to give folks a visual to put in perspective what they're experiencing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Can I chime in a comment?
Yes, please.
Hey, it's David Ball here. One of the things that I'm in the in-between phase, as just like most of the people are on this call, but I wanted just to reinforce the physical fitness aspect that you talked about. In this period of time, I don't think that there's a lot of things that we feel like we can control. And that's part of the uncertainty part, and that's where you get negativity, or you can kind of tend to go down, but you can control your fitness. And if you do that, you get the heart rate up, and the heart rate means blood circulation. Blood circulation means creativity. And so even if you don't consider yourself a physical person, you are a physical person. And getting out and making some sort of a journey, even if it's just around the block or something like that, because we are trapped in these physical shells until the day we die. And so if you can keep it going and keeping it physically going, and do the nutrition thing with water and good food, that sort of thing, it will make a world of difference for the mind. And the mindset is so critical, but it's going to take the physical body to do it.
Yeah. And, there's another practical aspect to it. And that is, if I were a hiring authority in this day and age with the costs of healthcare, if I get two equally qualified candidates and one of them looks like they could run a marathon, the other looks like they would collapse within the first 10 steps, guess who I'm going to choose?
I think I agree with that positive, and it helps with a positive attitude.
Yeah.
And whoever put in the chat earlier about smiling, we're visual people, so smiling is a very important part of it. So that's just my comment.
Yeah. Well, no, and it's also known that exercise releases endorphins, which are legally mind-altering drugs. So it's a good thing all the way around. So
yeah, get out and get moving, and that helps you change your mindset. Look at the possible as opposed to just sitting in a room going, "What else can I put out? What else can I find?" Get out and see what's going on in the world. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other comments from anybody? Going once, going twice.
Jeff, I have a comment. This is Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara.
I was just going to put it in the chat, but I'll just go ahead and voice it. So back when first of all, excellent presentation. So
thank you.
This type of change needs to be talked about because it makes us feel like we kind of are all bonded going through the same situation. But so this would be my third time. I'm in IT that I've been part of a company-wide layoff. And the first two, were, years ago, EDS and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it was more of a traditional, that was kind of like the only thing that I was focused on was, oh my goodness, I lost my job. And relatively speaking, I found a new job relatively quickly. And I feel blessed that I somehow always landed better than I was. So anyway, so that's happened twice. But here we have the sense of the job loss, plus the sense, plus the pandemic, plus the winter storm. It just seems like it's just kind of like tumbling, just a lot of external constraints coming at us, causing the, the duration of job loss to be extended. There's no doubt that is a fact. And so I was just wondering if you have any additional slide. I assume that like I said, the presentation was developed back when there might have been that single external constraint, but with all of these kind of exacerbated, is there any, extra advice that you have for us to stay positive, I guess it is, and stay hopeful?
I guess, well, let me do it this way. First of all, and I'm going to defer to Jeff on that because, quite frankly, when I left Career Connection in 2012, I've had little involvement in the career management process since. But one of the things that I always did when new folks would arrive and I was doing introduction to Career Connection, I would, because quite frankly, most of the folks in these networking groups, this isn't the first time, and you've got years of practical experience and all. So I encourage folks to take a step back and examine their toolkit. And by toolkit, I mean all the things that you've learned in your past lives that either help you maintain a positive outlook, deal with rejection, etc. I wish I had a magic wand for it, but I've had people, some people do exercise. I've had people who had not played their musical instruments since junior high who developed a new relationship with their musical instrument, things of that nature. So I wish I had a magic bullet. And you're right. When I started my career, and Proctor was clearly this, that, if you didn't mess up, you didn't leave Proctor unless you voluntarily chose to, which was my case. And that doesn't exist anymore. So, so I'm sorry, I wish I had a magic bullet. If I think of anything, I'll let Jeff know and he can forward that information to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been tough on everybody. I mean, we're all going through, it's really, really tough. I mean, for me, I walk 7 days a week and I haven't walked in the last 8 days because it's been too cold to get out in the neighborhood and walk. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. My minimum temperature is 40. So once it's above 40 degrees, I am out walking in the weather regardless. So I'm looking forward to getting out there tomorrow. Now this afternoon, I'll be shoveling snow off my driveway. So that'll be my exercise for the day. But I mean, getting out, this has been tough. I mean, it's been tough on everybody. We've all gone through, work changes. I mean, I know a lot of us are waiting for that first and second shot because we're hoping that life will start back together. The encouraging sign that I see is that this group has always been 40 to 60 people. It's always been about that number in the last 8 years that I've run. I mean, since 2007. It's never been 100 people. It's never been, 20 or 30 people. It's always been that 40 to 60 range, even no matter how good or bad the economy's doing. And the fact that we already out of this group have 26 landings in the first 6 weeks, I'm very encouraged that things are going to pick up. Things, everything stopped this week. I know a couple people told me they had interviews scheduled and everything just stopped this week. It may even next week as people are trying to find plumbers to fix the leak. In fact, somebody on our call today had to leave because the water came on and they got a broken pipe in their garage. So they're gone. So, I think we're all going to be dealing with stuff for the next week or so, but then hopefully we'll get back to, as the weather warms up, we'll sort of get back to a routine. I think companies are hiring, companies are figuring out what they need for 2020. Hopefully we all sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. I do. I'm very encouraged about this summer and fall being able to have a more normal life, and I hope everybody else is too. So,
and Jeff, just one last comment from me, based on this conversation. Think back to the presentation. We are all living in the neutral zone right now because we don't know. We trust that there's going to be an end to this weather and to COVID, but we don't know when, and we don't know what it'll look like. And we also know that there are some things, some of the standard protocols that did not exist prior to COVID that are probably going to stick around forever after that. So what we're living through right now is a reasonable example of this process.
Any other comments from anybody? Anything else anybody wants to bring up before we move on? All right, I don't see anything. All right, well, Clay, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your time. Great presentation. I think people found a lot of good things out of it. Really appreciate what you've, what you shared with everybody. Next week, our speaker is Stephanie Hyman. She's going to talk about keep your eyes on the prize, continuing learn and adapt for career success. One of the topics I talked to her, she's the speaker, she's in her 30s, and some of us have kids who are in our 30s. And so one of the topics that I asked her to sort of talk about a little bit is to talk about, talk about that generation of talking to mom and dad about losing a job and what you're going through and how do you share and what advice you take. So I'm not sure what she's going to mix in. I haven't quite seen the presentation yet, but join us next week. I'm sure it'll be another interesting presentation. For those people who have not done so, if you've not put in the chat box or in the comment field on Zoom or Facebook, please put in your name, phone number, email address, position you're looking for, a couple target companies, and then hit the return key. I will copy all that information. I will put it out into an email this afternoon, along with a copy of the Excel spreadsheet that has everybody who's been in the group. Remember that spreadsheet's got the contact list has got 3 pages. The first page are those people who are active, who we've seen in the last 90 days. The next page is those alumni, those people who've landed, the 5 or 6 people who landed this week, as well as everybody else in the past. And this is going back since 2008, 2007, 2008. So, if you're trying to find a company, this is a great way to go look for target companies. They may no longer work there, but they may be able to offer some advice about the company. And they've all gone through this North Dallas group. So they all should be cooperative and be willing to help you. And then the third tab are those people who we've lost contact with, who've just disappeared and we haven't heard from them in the last 90 days. This afternoon, there was supposed to be a meeting of the Women of Wonder. They have delayed because of weather issues. So they'll be back next Friday at 1 o'clock. And if you're interested, you can reach out to Barbara Thompson or check the website, and it'll have the email address for Susan, who leads the group, to be able to get the invitation on how to join. But Barbara Townsend is also part of that group and can tell you how to join that group. Every week, Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on workshops. Starting March 1st, we're going to start a new group on Mondays just about networking, how to network with recruiters, network or not work. Just anything you can talk about. I'm lining up a series of different speakers. It won't be the same presentation every week. It'll be from different points of view. So hopefully join us starting March 1st, Mondays at 1 o'clock about networking. Tuesdays, we do LinkedIn interviewing. On Wednesdays, effective resume Thursdays. And then this group meets every Friday morning at 9:30. Coming up next Tuesday, a really interesting presentation, if you've not heard it, from Kurt Vandemater about LinkedIn. LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. Kurt pays around $10,000 a year to LinkedIn to use the recruiting package. So if you want to see what he sees from his back end, you would probably want to join. And it's very sort of fascinating to see how he whittles down job searches from 760 million people down to try to find you. On Wednesday, as we've mentioned before, session 8 of 13, asking questions in the interview. If you've missed sessions 1 through 7, they're all on the Career USA YouTube channel. You can go back and watch them there. On Thursday, we'll be doing our Effective Resume Thursdays. Join us for resume tips and tricks. Also, you have an opportunity to win a month's use of jobscan.co. We'll be giving away 2 licenses for 1 month use, and that'll be for the month of March. So if you're interested, come join us this Friday or this Thursday and try to win. So this session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for you to view as much and often as you want. We don't post the slides because, quite frankly, without the words the slides sometimes don't mean a whole lot. So you can go back and, encourage you to go back to the YouTube channel, watch the presentation there. You can skip ahead. It's really the best way to do it. Follow us on Facebook, like us subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate that. On the YouTube channel, it looks like this. You should get to it by going to playlist, Career USA, then playlist. And then at the bottom, don't click on the video, but click where it says view full playlist, where that red arrow is, because that will then bring up a list. It will look something like this. It will show you all the topics, and you can scroll down all the way back to when we first started doing this last spring, and you can see all the topics, and you can pick the one you want. So thank you very much for joining us today. Clay, thank you very much again. Everybody,
thank you for the opportunity.
Weekend, and enjoy the non-frozen temperatures.
Thanks again, Jeff.